In April 1989, Ethel Kidd disappeared under mysterious circumstances and was subsequently found deceased. And believe me when I say it, you're not going to believe the truly insane coincidence that led to this case being solved. Ethel and her husband, Gilbert, had recently retired to this rural area, eager to spend their golden years close to their children and grandchildren. Their new home symbolized a fresh chapter, but it soon became the backdrop for a tragic event. On April 12, 1989, Ethel was last seen retrieving her mail around 2 p.m. The following morning, when she failed to answer her daughter's routine call and missed their morning coffee, concern grew. Her son-in-law visited the house and found the front door unlocked, Ethel absent, and a local map inexplicably lying in the yard. There were no signs of a struggle, deepening the mystery of her disappearance. A week later, a hunter discovered Ethel's body in a wooded area 3 miles from her home. She was bound to a tree, and the condition of her remains suggested she had been slain approximately 7 days earlier. In an extremely twisted turn, despite the evidence showing she had been slain at this time, her body showed little decomposition. Forensic investigators came to the conclusion that she had been kept in a refrigerated environment before being left in the woods. An autopsy confirmed that she had been subject to SA as well. The investigation yielded several perplexing clues. The map found in Ethel's yard contained motel stationery with writings of a disturbing and erotic nature. Further, a handwritten list outlined items and steps that appeared to be a blueprint for committing an elimination, including references to selecting a location and obtaining a new identity. Investigators also noted the cord used to bind Ethel was a type used exclusively in hospitals and hotels and not readily available to the public. This helped investigators narrow the potential profile of the perpetrator, especially in combination with the usage of motel stationery. Despite these leads, the case went cold until it was featured on the television program Unsolved Mysteries. The original broadcast in 1991 yielded no new leads or information. However, in 1995, a viewer recognized the handwriting from the broadcast and contacted authorities, suggesting it matched that of Edward Wayne Beverly. At the time, Beverly was incarcerated in Tennessee for unrelated crimes. Handwriting analysis confirmed the match, and further investigation revealed that Beverly had lived in the same town at the time of Ethel's slaying, but had moved away shortly thereafter. DNA testing and fingerprint analysis provided conclusive evidence linking Beverly to the crime. Authorities surmised that Beverly approached Ethel under the guise of needing directions, using a map as a prop to show how confused he was, before abducting, assaulting, and slaying her. In 1997, Edward Beverly was convicted and received 3 life sentences without the possibility of parole. Beverly died of unknown causes in prison in 2008. It's almost impossible to overstate just how staggeringly improbable this resolution was. Solving a brutal, years-old slaying based on a single flash of handwriting on a TV show is the kind of lightning strike moment that investigators and internet sleuths dream about. Had that person missed the broadcast or never connected the dots, there's every chance Ethel's slaying would still be a mystery. Hey everyone, it's Jimmy here with a quick reminder to like, subscribe, and to check out my content on my other channels. In September 1997, the small town of Vincennes, Indiana, was shaken by the brutal slaying of 19-year-old Brooke Baker, a journalism student at Vincennes University. Known for her ambition and dedication, Brooke was an active member of the university's newspaper, The Trailblazer, and had a promising future ahead. On September 7, 1997, Brooke's brother discovered her lifeless body in her off-campus apartment. She had been SA'd and stabbed multiple times, with 11 stab wounds indicating an extremely violent struggle. The crime scene presented peculiar details. The bathtub faucet was left running, and towels were found soaking, suggesting an attempt to clean up. A soapy knife, believed to be the elimination weapon, was found in the kitchen sink. Initially, investigators considered several leads. Brooke had been investigating an alleged SA involving a fraternity on campus, which had led to threats against her. Additionally, her landlord, a campus police officer, had exhibited inappropriate behavior, making her uncomfortable. Despite these leads, the case went cold due to a lack of concrete evidence and viable suspects. The breakthrough came nearly 2 years later, in July 1999, when another Vincennes University student, Erica Norman, was reported missing. Her apartment bore some striking similarities to Brooke's crime scene. The bathtub faucet was left running, and a couch cushion was found inside the tub, much like with the towels at Brooke's. Blood splatters indicated a violent encounter, but Erica's body was missing. Investigators learned that Erica was last seen with Brian Jones, a former Vincennes University student. Jones cooperated with the investigation, providing a DNA sample and allowing searches of his property. Forensic analysis revealed blood consistent with Erica's in his car and home. Tragically, Erica's body was discovered weeks later in a rural Illinois cornfield. The evidence led to Jones being charged with her slaying. Further investigation revealed that Jones's DNA matched the sample recovered from Brooke Baker's crime scene, conclusively linking him to both events. In 2000, Jones pleaded guilty to Erica Norman's slaying, receiving a 60-year prison sentence. He was subsequently tried and convicted for the slaying of Brooke Baker, receiving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Bonnie Craig was an 18-year-old freshman at the University of Alaska Anchorage. On September 28, 1994, she left her Anchorage home before dawn, aiming to catch a bus for her early morning English class. Tragically, she never arrived, and later that day, hikers discovered her lifeless body in McHugh Creek, about 10 miles from her bus stop. The initial assumption was that she had died from a fall, but further examination revealed she had been SA'd and slain. The investigation into Bonnie's death faced significant challenges. Despite the collection of DNA evidence from the crime scene, there were no immediate matches in the national database, leaving the case unsolved for years. During this period, Bonnie's mother, Karen Foster, tirelessly sought justice for her daughter. She even considered the possibility that her own undercover work with the local police, which had led to the arrest of several substance pushers, might have made her family a target for retaliation. A breakthrough came in November 2006, when a routine search of CODIS matched the DNA from Bonnie's case to that of Kenneth Dion. Dion, a former soldier stationed in Alaska during the early 1990s, was serving time in New Hampshire for a series of armed robberies. His DNA had been entered into the national database in 2006, leading to the match. Dion had never been a suspect nor a person of interest in Bonnie's case. Following his indictment in 2007, Dion's trial faced multiple delays, finally commencing in May 2011. During the trial, Dion claimed that he had consensual relations with Bonnie and suggested that she might have fallen to her death afterward. However, the prosecution presented compelling evidence, including the fact that Bonnie was in a committed relationship at the time with a boyfriend whom she loved very much. Additionally, the nature of her injuries indicated assault rather than an accidental fall. In June 2011, nearly 17 years after Bonnie's death, Dion was found guilty of first-degree elimination, aggravated by the heinous SA he conducted. He was sentenced to 124 years in prison, ensuring he would never cause more harm. In the quiet town of Noel, Missouri, the morning of October 6, 1989, began with a shocking discovery. Employees arriving at the State Bank of Nowell found the vault open and approximately $70,000 missing. Perhaps more alarmingly, the bank's president, Dan Short, was nowhere to be found. Dan Short, a well-respected figure in the community, had been leading the bank since 1983. His sudden disappearance, coupled with the substantial theft, sent ripples of fear and confusion through the small town. The initial investigation considered the possibility of Short's involvement in the theft. Significant preliminary inquiries were made into any debts or obligations he may have had, or if he had any criminal connections, but he was as clean as a whistle. Any thoughts of him being connected were quickly dismissed when, 5 days later, his body was discovered in Grand Lake near Cowskin Bridge in Oklahoma. The circumstances of Short's death were particularly harrowing. He had been bound to a chair with a chain hoist attached to his left ankle using gray duct tape, and a concrete block was affixed to the chair, presumably to weigh him down. Evidence suggested that Short was still alive when he was thrown into the lake, making his death not only a slaying, but a particularly cruel and heinous one. The investigation into Short's kidnapping and elimination was extensive. Authorities discovered that the bank had been experiencing financial difficulties and was under audit, leading to various theories about potential suspects and motives. However, the breakthrough came when two brothers, Joseph and Shannon Agofsky, became prime suspects. Both had been observed spending large amounts of money following the robbery, despite being unemployed. Additionally, further forensic evidence linked them to the crime scene. In 1992, the Agofsky brothers were indicted and tried in Missouri. After a 7-day federal trial, both were found guilty of conspiracy, aggravated bank robbery, and use of a weapon while committing a felony, resulting in life sentences plus 5 years. Notably, this federal trial didn't include the slaying itself, given that it wasn't a federal offense. Further trials in 1997 led to Shannon's conviction for the slaying, while the jury couldn't reach a verdict for Joseph. However, given their previous convictions, they were safely locked behind bars. Shannon received an additional life sentence for Short's slaying. Later, in 2004, Shannon was sentenced to death for the elimination of a fellow inmate, Luther Plant, at a federal prison in Texas. He remains on death row, while Joseph died in prison in 2013.